So what happens when you leave a big organization where you have resources at your fingertips and you're leading teams and you're known in the industry as an impact player, personality, but you also have that big company behind you. Now you move to another organization. It's still a decent sized company, but a lot of challenges are facing you because now you're coming in with this reputation. People know you a certain way from your speaking engagements or meeting you at conferences, but what's it like to really work with this person? And more importantly, you as a leader, when you're taking over a team, what are the things that you have to put in place in order to win that team over? And that's what we're going to focus on today. I went out and asked Bob Lanham, who is now working with CarNow, and he is an executive in this organization, but as he shares, he had to take over a team, win them over, because there were preconceived notions of who he was. And they all had, an eye on, well, how is Bob going to treat us? And how is he really going to deliver these results? So again, great lessons, great tactical strategies for those of you who are just taking over a team. Whether you're new at leadership or an experienced leader, if you're moving to a new organization, taking on a new initiative, how do you win over your team? And what happens in those first 30 to 60 days are really important. And that's what we're going to talk about today with Bob Lanham of CarNow. So let's dive into today's episode. All right, Bob. So everyone, Bob Lanham, he is now the senior, let me get your new title. It's very big and important. Vice President, Manufacturer Relations for CarNow. Now, for many of you in the automotive industry, Bob and I first connected while he was working at Facebook, now Meta. And, now he's moved over to CarNow. So Bob, what I wanted to chat with you about today, where I think you could provide a lot of value for the audience. People who follow the podcast have shared comments with me saying this has been very helpful in my journey. I'm in charge of something. I took over a department. I moved to a new company. I'm in charge of a company or just a project. And your guests always give me practical, tactical things that can help me. And I go, oh, because sometimes they feel on their own and they don't have anywhere to go. So for you, what the question I'd like to start out with is, what was it like? Because you've moved before and moved companies before, but what is that like? Like when you finally made the decision to move to CarNow, walk me through a little bit of what the process was like with going. And then I'd also like to talk about once you got there, what was that first 30 days like, 60 days like, 90 days like? Because someone's in that, either sitting in that chair ready to make that decision, or they already made that decision and maybe they're going, what the hell did I get myself into? So first off, thank you for being here. Welcome. It's so great to see you again. So what do you think?
Yeah, what a question. And first and foremost, Meta was my longest tenured company. I spent 7 years and 6 months at Meta, which is, from what I've learned per LinkedIn, for a tech company, it's like 2x the average tenure.
Right.
And I don't know what that means, just to be clear. Like, I have no idea what that means. Is that a good thing, bad thing? Like, so on and so forth. I think it probably just means people, I don't know if they get burnt out, they get worn out. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Whatever reason, 3 years seems to be a time span where they want maybe their next challenge.
Right.
But I tell you that because I have nothing but great things to say about my time at Meta. It's truly one of the highlights of my career.
Mm-hmm.
It helped accelerate my career. The people I got to work with helped me accelerate my career. Hopefully I helped them in some form. But what was it like? What was that decision like?
Mm-hmm.
I think we all love to be challenged, right? And we all loved to have new challenges and new focuses and new opportunities to try to tackle. And like I said, I had spent 7.5 years there, and I just couldn't see what else I could do that would make an impact. And if I'm not making an impact, if I'm not making a difference, if I'm not making it better, like I just personally can't wake up and be excited for the day.
Right.
So for me personally, that's not to say Meta was in a position where it was not doing well or not doing the right thing. It was just me personally. Again, 2x the average tenure I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I just finally woke up one day. I'll tell you, it was a Saturday morning. I'll never forget it. I'm in the basement. I'm throwing some dog toys around for my little golden doodle to go fetch and run back, right? And I was like, man, I need to start exploring. I was not looking in a hurry. I wasn't looking to make a change the next day or Monday. I was just like, I'm just going to call a few people, some mentors, some friends, and just talk shop. And Tim Cox was one of them. We both know Tim, known Tim for a long time. I've traveled with Tim at Meta. We had worked together. He built off our APIs. We've done some products together. And long story short, a couple weeks later, I was joining the CarNow team. So it was just, for me, it was just personally time to have a new challenge.
Well, and that's a great point to continue to build on, because I think it's very important for companies and leaders to understand where their team is at in terms of those challenges. There are people on your team that want to be challenged, want to move up. There are people that will say, oh, this new generation, they want to know what their career path is. But I think everybody wants to know what's the next challenge. No one wants to, well, I wouldn't say no one, but there may be a percentage of people who are very happy doing the same job all over and over, because that's not where they find their challenge. Their challenge might be outside of their, where they're gaining this revenue, because their challenge is their side hustle, their challenge is their family, their challenge is coaching a team.
That's right.
So they get that juice. But it's interesting that you say that, because here's an organization that obviously has a lot of opportunities, but if you don't see it on your own path, or even if it's in the same company, eventually it's, well, I want to change. I want something else. And the other thing that you said, which struck me, is I heard somebody talk about it this morning, and I thought it resonated very well for this conversation, which was you shouldn't look for a job when you're not happy. Because if you're not happy where you are, everything that you see out there is going to be beneficial. Oh, that 2-hour commute. Oh, it's going to be great. Don't worry about it, because that opportunity over there, or this, that, and the other thing, until you're there and you go, what the hell was I thinking? So not that I'm encouraging people to leave their jobs, but if you are happy where you are, it is a good place to be able to look and say, where is my challenge? What's next? What's down the road? And maybe it's time to move because this organization can't provide that, right? It's just not big enough to provide that. That's all right. And they'll probably encourage you to go, because if they believe in you, they want you to be successful.
Right. And by the way, like I had looked at other roles within Meta. They had bought a messaging CRM system called Customer with a K. I thought that was interesting. But me personally, I absolutely love, and I know it sounds corny, I absolutely love auto retail. Like I cannot see myself in any other industry than auto retail. And again, I just hit my personal challenge max there. And, I loved what you said about like, don't try to replace misery with something that you might perceive to be better or greener on the other side. And maybe it's not, maybe it's the same differences. And,
or remember that everybody's on their best behavior when they're interviewing, both sides of the table. I've had employees who have left for what they thought was a better opportunity, and I couldn't provide that in our current structure. And I encouraged them. I said, listen, they were great employees. I said, you always have a home. You always have a home, right? To select employees. You always have a home. And 6 months later, there was a young woman who, through someone else, because she didn't want to call me, the opportunity that she was promised didn't evolve into that. She was supposed to be working with the leader of that company, and they were supposed to mentor them. And all of a sudden that person was traveling and she was by herself, and she realized, I like working with teams. Very similar to you saying, I like automotive retail. this person said, I work better when I'm collaborating with a team. And so through everyone else said, well, would you take her back? I said, absolutely, I'd take her back. And we, at that time, were able to plug her into a different role. And she ended up staying with us for 3 more years, very successfully, until she went off to do something on her own that was completely different. That was her passion. And so
Yeah.
I agree with you. It is that, be very careful of what you're promised and understand, because it may not be what you think it is, because I'm doing a good job selling you on my company too, but the day-to-day may not actually be what you're hoping it is.
And Glenn, I loved what you said about, maybe some people are happy with just doing their job on a daily basis. Maybe they don't want to move up or move side or this and that. And I think, or I hope people pay closer attention to their life stage or their post-work life and how that fits in with work. Like we've all heard, don't work to live, live to, don't live
Don't
to
live to work to live,
work
right?
to
Yeah,
live, right?
Mhm.
And I think there's, I think maybe as you get older, or as I've gotten older, I think that has probably had more meaning than when I was a young gun running and going and trying to, be CEO of whatever company I could be CEO, CEO of. But I do think we need to all be understanding of other people's goals, what their life stages are, where they're at, what they actually want to do, where they want to be. Because to your point, not everybody wants to have the same career path as yours. Maybe they have more value in, hey man, when 5 o'clock hits or 6 o'clock hits, I'm out, man. I am hiking trails. I am going on a bike ride. I'm hanging out with my family. And to me, that's more valuable than a $10,000 raise.
And for people, what our philosophy is at our company is, I always tell them, just take care of our clients, handle your responsibilities. That's all I'm asking you to do. If you want to do more, I can come, let's talk. There have been people who've worked for me for 8 years who said, I don't want to manage people. I don't like that. I will train them. I will coach them, but I have a hard time sitting across from them and saying, hey, Bob, I got to document you. That's not, I don't want that. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And the more that you, and I think that's really great to create that environment, is if you're working where, as long as they're handling their responsibilities.
That's right.
And you make them aware that there's opportunities. I can't force you to take on more opportunities, but to your point is, life changes where when you're young, you don't have kids, all of a sudden kids and that responsibility, or post, or I'm doing this, or family. I just look at through the lens, as long as our clients are taken care of, as long as your responsibility is taken care of, Godspeed. Outside of work, that's your time. Go for it. Go for it. So let me, so on this now, so you made the decision. And like I said, I'm sure that was not an easy decision, or maybe it was, but I'm sure there was a little bit of, what did I get myself into? So let's talk about that, if you could. Those first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, because as I said, there's probably somebody who accepted that position. They're excited. They're starting April 1st, and they're sitting here going, what do I do my first 30 days, right? There's one thing if I'm an employee, but also if I'm in charge of something, taking on something, like they're bringing you on to handle a team or a department at your level. And so walk me through some tips or things that you dealt with, or just through your experience where maybe it wasn't a big issue this time because I've done this before. But for that person out there that's sitting going, I'm a little nervous, what tips or strategies could you help them with?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thought process you should have, and keep in mind, while CarNow is not technically a startup, it's still a small, small business with a startup mentality.
Right.
So you're going from Meta with by far the best health benefits, medical benefits, perks, like everything, right? To a smaller company that just can't do those type of perks and benefits. So luckily I had been at multiple startups or smaller companies in the past. So my expectations on the business related items were already there. So if you've never done that, people always say the term golden handcuffs, and that's real. right? Like that, like even before Meta was a thing, I was at Yahoo, and they at the time had the best benefits and the best perks and everything before that, right? And then I went to Hulu, which was a pure startup, right? Which was literally, we rented an office with old equipment and we just tried to figure it out. So I think you have to go into wherever you're working, just sort of understanding what resources you have or don't have. Because if you're going in with a big business corporate mentality into a small business that has a fraction of the resources or the benefits or whatever that is, like, sorry, like you're going to be crushed right from the get-go, right? So take the smallest thing, like a cell phone, right? Like Meta, you click a few buttons and your cell phone arrives.
Right.
I had to go out and get my own cell phone, get my own package. Like, there's such little things that people, I think, take for granted at a big company that you have to do. But I love the small business. I love the small business aspect. So that was the first thing I would say, is just understand the differences between a big business, a medium business, and a small business, because the resources are different, right? The benefits are different. 401ks, or everything's different.
And so do you think that's something that should be discussed in the interview process, just to get a sense of, what those expectations are, right? I had a previous guest, who, when they went out to start their own business, they talked to other people and they said, oh, well, you got to buy this and buy this. And next thing you know, she was saying, I invested all this money into, but I didn't even have a business yet, right? So that idea of what it looks like. So, making sure you're very clear on that when during the interview process, what is my day-to-day, what are my responsibilities, what are my resources, so that when you accept, you understand that, right? You don't want to come in post acceptance to go, wait a minute, I forgot to ask about that.
Family of 5, right? At Meta, healthcare was essentially paid for, and the top of the line healthcare. Well, family of 5 moves to a smaller company that now I have to pay some money, and our benefits are just fine. But I researched. I said to Andy, the CEO, can you send me the benefit back, so I could at least understand, right, what I'm getting, what I'm not getting, so I can understand what out of pocket expenses I might have. Now, I'm a family of 5 with kids. If you're single and you don't have a whole family, maybe that's less relevant, because maybe that's less important. You don't need to have though. So you have to, and listen, this was trial by fire, or learning from the number of job changes that I have.
Absolutely.
That you're
that's
like,
what
oh my gosh.
That's what we're trying to provide here, is someone who hasn't been, or they're earlier on their journey, is, have this checklist. And like you said, if I'm a single person, maybe the benefits that they cover is fine for me. But if I have a family, I have to ask those questions, or what do you cover? What don't you cover? How easy? All of those things that we may take for granted, especially when we're in an organization where we stop thinking about that because we're just working. And if that ever comes up, we talk about it, versus I'm going into something. So I think that's a great first step, is really understanding all of the, expectations. What are your needs to accept this job?
That's right.
Right. What are the non-negotiables to accept? What are the, that's all right, so I pay for my own phone, not the end of the world, because that's offset by, oh, but look what I get to do, right? Versus, well, no, I really want a phone. All of that comes down to, again, going back to that idea that the handcuffs. So walk me through that. So you're in and all of that.
Yep.
Like your first 30 days, 45, 60 days, how do you, when you're the person, now you're a little different than a lot of people, because people in CarNow or the company, they knew of you. Maybe some of them met you, but it's different than working with you. But how do you recommend someone's just coming in? How did you navigate, watching what, clicks, groups, politics, things like that? What can I say? What can I say? Like, at what point did you finally go, all right, I just got to be me? Or again, to help these folks, those first 30, 45 days can be a little nerve-wracking.
Well, first and foremost, like, imagine being the to your point, like, yes, I knew most of the company, or a good chunk of the company. They probably knew of me. And I don't say that arrogantly. It's just because we had worked together. Right. We're in the same industry. So I'm guessing they're thinking, is this guy really real? Like, okay, now he's on our side. Like, is he legit or not?
Mm-hmm.
But Glenn, I always try to be a student of the game, whatever it is. So my first 30 days at the very least, I like to just sit back, right, and watch and learn. Now, of course, I'm contributing when I can, but I like to see personalities, right? Try to understand what their style is over versus another, right? I like to just ask random questions to see what type of answers I'm going to get. So while I was not mute or quiet on executive calls or any other calls, I did do more listening, which is what we're taught to do.
Right.
Or took me years to figure that out, but I did do more listening than I did talking. Because I truthfully, while I knew CarNow at a level and maybe a little bit deeper, simply because I knew the founders and of course a lot more transparency when I was joining, because again, I wasn't in a rush, I wasn't in a hurry, I was just exploring. So I had the deeper background, but I sat back, I watched, I learned, I called people on the side, what's going on, what's working, what's not working, what do you see, what don't you see? And how long did it take for me to okay, be Bob and maybe be more boisterous like I am, right? More my Chris Farley style. It probably took not long, probably a month, maybe, maybe a month and a half for me. But no, not too bad.
No, but see that to me, again, for those of you listening, I hope you heard what Bob said is when you're walking into a new organization, I don't care if you're in charge and they said you're the leader of everything. That first 30 days, spending time watching and learning and asking questions, because remember, you're a different set of eyes. You're not used to all the dynamics. You don't know the players. You don't know that this person fights with this person or that person used to do this and now they're regretting whatever all those political dynamics are, or you don't know how meetings are run, or you don't know how reporting is done, or you don't know what you can say and what you can't say. So I hope you really understand what he said is sitting down, being part, not being mute, but earning the right to say things by watching. And then when you have to, yes, offer your opinion, but you'll learn more faster when you just watch what's going on, take your notes, ask relevant questions. Why do we start this meeting at this time? Why do we do it this day? How do we do this? How do we do that? It's really understanding the what, the why, the how. If you spent your first 30 days doing that, I think it'll set you up. One, if you're just an employee, you'll ingratiate yourself more with the team and understand how you can add success. If you're the leader, you'll know who the players are, who the people are, what we need to watch, what we need to do. And by doing that detective work, I think it sets you up to be more successful. So I hope you really listened to what Bob said. So that's really great.
I had taken over a different team than anticipated fairly quickly. And the first question I asked in the first team meeting is, what is working and what is not? Now, that's not to say what they think is working is actually working, or what is not as working is actually working. But you have to get your teams, whether they report to you or not, doesn't matter, what they're thinking, right? Because at the moment, I have no bias. I have no unconscious bias, right? Like I'm just a sponge. I'm just listening. I'm trying to figure out. And of course, I'm here to make an impact, right? I'm here to challenge people. I'm here to get them to think differently, maybe work differently, or whatever the scenario might be. But you have to make them feel as if they're part of the process.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's a great point. Great point.
Because if they're not, it's not their job anymore. They're just doing what you tell them to do. And that's not the goal. I would never want to do that, right? Because I don't know what I don't know. Right. I'm not here, I'm not the end all be all. Like I'm just here with my strengths and my weaknesses and my knowledge, my lack of knowledge, and how can we bring it all together to create that synergy. And I'll give you this story, and because you said something earlier, I'll never forget this story. I won't name the company, it doesn't matter who the leader was at the time. And I had joined, a number of us had joined, and sales at the time were challenged. Okay. And leadership was, you guys came in to fix it. You all have the pedigree. You all have the reputation, right? You all have the contacts. Go fix it now. And I remember saying to myself, well, hold on a second. Like, I can't fix what I don't know is broke. Like, how did
Absolutely.
it break?
Right.
And I started, actually, believe it or not, I had to do a presentation early on. So I started researching, quotes, and Steve Jobs had a quote, and I don't know if it was his or not, at least it was contributed to him. And it was something like, you can't build the future if you don't understand the past.
Mm-hmm.
Something to that effect.
Absolutely.
Something to that effect. And here's what I had learned, right? I had learned that previously, a few years prior, the company had a massive growth, massive sales.
Mm-hmm.
Every major company wanted to do business with them. And then it just stopped. I was like, oh, I got to figure out, like, why did it stop?
Right.
Like you just, Bob Lanham can't just walk in and be like, hey, you used to do business with us. We want you to do business with us again, plus,
Plus,
30%.
right. Yeah.
But you just don't do that. And what I had researched was, and it was a hot brand. It was a newer technology. And of course, every business was like, I'm going to try it.
Right.
But what was sold had a higher expectation than what ended up being delivered, right?
Right.
Which is your sales 101 fail.
Right.
Right. You always want to under promise and over deliver, not over promise and under deliver. Right. And it wasn't necessarily the people's fault by any means. It truly wasn't. It was new, brand spanking new. And my point of saying that was, like, I couldn't help the company get back to where it was going to go or where it needed to be if I didn't understand how we got into this position in the first place. So
right.
that's why I truly try to be a student of the game, because there's probably a reason why they made a decision. Maybe they just made the wrong decision and they didn't know any better.
Yeah. There's so many there. And again, folks, that's whether you're in sales or you're running a team or I always treat it as like you're a detective at a crime scene, right? You walk up and you see things and you have to start asking questions to understand what happened. Like you're saying in sales, if someone's asking for your product, right, they're jumping on the phone for you, right? So we were talking before the show, a common dealer that we know reached out to you. There's a reason why. And that's what I've trained our individuals, our sales teams, but also our project managers when we're talking. If something's bothering somebody, why are we talking about it now? Why not 6 months ago?
Amen.
Why
Just
not 6 months from now? Like, how did we end up here today? And once you understand what caused that, what triggered that concern, that need for your product, something kicked up that they said, this is important. One that helps you understand and so you can communicate. So same thing, if you have a team, and like Bob's example, so if you're listening and let's say you're running a sales team and sales are not happening, instead of just saying, go out, let's go work harder.
That's right.
You have to pause for a minute and say, well, wait a minute. Actions cause results. What actions were they? Is the process no longer working? Or is it the effort no longer working? Has something changed in the market that our product is not desirable? All of those things, or else you're just shooting blindly. And like you said, maybe you hit it. Like if you came into that company, try. And for that moment you were successful. But that's not a recipe for long-term success, because you can't be the blind squirrel, so to speak, and find the nut every once in a while, but you're not really having a process of how to dissect it. So I really love that idea of using that listening to understand where we have to go. It also, I think, speeds up your progress by knowing what direction you have to work.
Well, and you and I have chatted about this in the past, and I know we have similar, philosophies or mindsets. I'd rather lose the business the right way than win it the wrong way. And many people know, like, that's a long-term strategy. Sure. Could we hustle and figure out a way to hit goal that particular month? But if we do that, like, what do we jeopardize? Like, did we build an infrastructure or stability of the sale so that it just automatically auto renews? Or is the product going to continue to be questioned every
and then
month?
you're going to churn out what you got. And then all you're doing is you become that gerbil wheel where you can't grow because you brought in 10, but you lost 12, brought in 12 and you lost 14. And that, to your point, is we all can sell anything, but if you're not looking to, if you're only wanting to sell one time and you're like, I'll just go sell $1 million to 1 million people. I don't care about repeat. Okay, that's a business model. But most of us want retention, recommendations, want people to grow with us, want our company to grow, versus all we're doing is just selling, who
Grinding.
cares, and that's it. I love that. Love that. Love that.
I tell you where I really learned it. So, everyone's heard the brand Hulu, right? And they think Hulu's it is this massive brand now. And at the time when I was there, it was truly a startup. The CEO and like 2 other people just figured the name out. While we were owned by NBC and Fox at the time, Disney had not bought in, but it was truly its own independent company and so on and so forth. And we were bringing TV online. This is the early 2000s, right? And no joke, I was basically laughed at by a lot of media planners being like, guys, no one's ever going to watch TV online. I mean, linear TV. Never. And you sit there and I look back today, I'm like, holy cow, it's kind of cool work. But here's where I learned it, right? Like we were selling TV commercials on, this is even before it went on an iPad or a mobile device or even a connected TV. It was Hulu.com. And it was a TV commercial in a pod break. Well, because it was Hulu.com, we often got sent to the digital people, right? Because the TV buyer is like,
yes,
even though it's a TV format and a pod break, it's .com, go to, well, what do you think the digital people wanted? Well, what's my cost per click? What's my cost per conversion? And we said from day one, I'll never forget sitting in the meeting, we said from day one, if we get into that conversation, we're going to pass on the business. Because that's not what this product is. That's not what the result was going to be, right? This was a brand awareness. This was TV. And I'll be honest, like as much as I maybe have missed goal or two when I worked there, we passed on a lot of business when someone said, well, what's my cost per click going to be? What's my cost? Because we said, well, that's not what this product's all about. Right. And until you understand exactly how you should buy it, we would rather not do business with you. Of course, we said it in a probably a different way, but,
nicer way.
And maybe. We passed on a little bit, but here's my point of this story. The second they called you back, it could have been a month, could have been 6 months, a year, whatever. When they bought us the right way. And they understood exactly what they were getting or not getting. And next thing you know, I mean, business just went like that. We didn't churn, right? Like there was no like, oh, we had them 1 month and that. No, it was okay. They may have a 3-month initiative, but they came back when they had another initiative, and then we did upfronts like the TV world does. So that's when it kind of hit me. It actually does work when you truly sell your product with the right expectation and you don't sell to a number. I always try to tell you, don't sell to a number. It's gonna be there. Put it over here. If you sell the product the right way and you treat the customers the right way, it's just going to happen.
The numbers take care of themselves. So it does. So folks, like, again, I want to really make sure that we take this time and really look at what Bob shared today, because, not only the idea of when you're moving to a new organization or even a new department internally at your current company, understanding the expectations, the requirements, change of your day-to-day, what responsibilities, if you're going to a new company, interviewing to know, as Bob said, simple things like, do I buy my cell phone or are you giving me a cell phone? Just so that you're not surprised. And then when you're in there, those first 30, 60 days or whatever time you're given, even if they say, I need expectations today, that's why I brought you here, you have to watch. You have to take time to see what's going on. You don't know what you don't know. And you're not going to be able to really help them accelerate, that team accelerate, or that project that you're leading accelerate, or from a high level company. Because remember, everybody worries. I had this conversation with someone the other day. They got promoted. They're like, now I have all these people. I said, no, you don't. Who's your team?
Who's your direct
report? They said they go, these 5 people. I said, that's who you focus on. Yeah, but I have all these people. No, you don't. You have 5 people. And so remember, understanding who do I impact? You could have 1,000 people under your umbrella, but reality is there's probably 5 people that oversee 20 people that oversee, and you got to focus on that. So Bob, that idea of where am I going? What lever do I have to pull? And then also understanding What is your responsibility long-term, short-term? Are we growing this product long-term? Are we, and again, maybe it changes. Maybe it is we need to generate sales over the next 6 months because this has to get funding or whatever it is, but just be clear on what your responsibilities are so that you can deliver that. And I think those are really important things. At the same moment in time, if you've listened underneath of everything, Bob's staying true to himself of who he is in order to be successful. Because I don't think you can put on a mask and, or an image, and that's going to solve your problems or lead you to great success long term.
You said something that spurred up sort of another attribute or understanding that you need to have as a leader, right? And it goes back. Look, everybody's got a number, everybody's got a boss. Even the CEO has a boss, right? Most likely. Yes. They have a board or the investors or whatever the scenario is. And look, from the top down, they're obviously always going to push you. They're always going to push you. Where are we? What are we doing? Like, oh, you got to hit the number. Like, that's just how life works. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's how you take that on as a leader, whatever. We could be a product leader. You could be a sales leader. You could be, an engineer. It doesn't matter. But how you absorb that pressure, I guess, or whatever you want to use that term, and then display it down to your team, right? How many times have you worked with someone, because I know you do a lot of consulting on people, who display their challenge with handling pressure or their fear of not downward?
Yeah.
Right. Where others are just, it's all here. I'm blocking it. I got you.
Right.
Just do it this way. I got you. I got your back. If you just follow the process or it all falls. And one of the things I think I always, look, I had someone the other day say to me, you came in, you kind of listened, you asked questions, and then you changed a few things that were very different than how we were accustomed to.
Right.
And I always personally, look, we're going to try something. We're going to figure this out, but we got to tweak it. Like we're going to make some changes, and it's going to be out of your comfort zone and this and that. And Glenn, like, how many times have you had a coworker or someone come up to you and be like, I hung up with you, or I turned around. I was like, I didn't think it was going to work. I didn't believe in it. And then they're like, holy cow. Like this is, and then how do they feel? And you're like, that's my, like, I still get chills when you think about when you challenge somebody. And kudos to them for accepting the challenge, whether they truly believe, truly accept it. But then it works. And how great do they feel? How great do you feel? And then
even if it doesn't work, and see, that's the other thing, is that not everything is going to work. But if you have an environment where testing is okay, and we learn from something. We just had this conversation with my brother the other day. We were talking about a marketing initiative for the agency. And we said, we're going to run this for 30 days and we're going to learn from it. He didn't say we're going to get mad if it fails. He goes, if it works, great. If it doesn't work, we're going to learn from it. But what he said was, but then we have to have another initiative behind it that we're going to test and learn. He goes, what I don't want is something running for 3 or 4 or 5 months and no one paying attention to it. That's not a test. And so again, that environment of constantly testing, what that does for you folks listening, if you have a team and your team is willing to, if you set the example that you're willing to test ideas, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get ideas from the people who are in the weeds, who are going to say, hey, I was thinking about this, or I saw this, or I saw somebody else do this, or I had a conversation. What do you think? And then your whole team gets better because you have all of that input. It doesn't always have to rely on you. You have to orchestrate it. You might have to choose which one we're going to test. You might have to put on the boss hat and say, yeah, I understand, but this is the way we're going to do it. And some people might get a little ruffled feathers, but that's your role. But it's that idea of testing and being open to testing, I think, is what accelerates a company further, because you have so many more eyes looking at it versus everything falling on you.
I love, like, you have to be willing to fail. Like, you just have to be willing to fail. And if you learn, I can't tell you how many, you and I both present a lot. We're on stages, we do our thing. I can't tell you how many times I may have adjusted a presentation, added something new, maybe changed a flow, and it is bombed. Right? I thought at the time, like, this, I think it's going to be great. This is going to be fantastic. This is going to revolutionize the industry, and it's all going to fall on me, and everyone's going to, carry me on their shoulders. And you walk off like, holy cow, that absolutely bombed. But then you're like, okay, it bombed because of XYZ. Like I can change this, I
Exactly.
can change that. And that, sorry for the background noise of my protective dog, but
No, that's all right.
nonetheless, like you have to be willing to fail. And I'll give you this short story. This happened a week ago with someone, two people on our team. You know, we were making an adjustment on something, and it's a big adjustment. Like it's an important conversation, and of course there's fear, what if, and this and that. And I was like, look, like, who's your best client? Who's your best relationship? Let's go there first, because your relationship hopefully could adjust the outcome if it does go in a different direction than we anticipated. And listen, truth be told, it was a harder conversation than I think we anticipated.
Right.
But when we did the post-mortem, the recap of the call, like we learned all these things, talking points, or how we mention it, so that we can use it for the broader conversation that needs to be had. And you know, I sit there and I try to tell the team, like, look, like, while frustrating that was, as hard as that was, like, look at the learning we just captured for now, the like much bigger part of the business. Yeah.
And I think that that's a great place to end, because that point right there is, you have to look at it the long-term journey. You know, we forget sometimes as individuals. Just go back and think where you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? As you get older, 20 years ago. And you say to yourself, wow, what will I have learned in the next 5 years? And if you're constantly open to saying, this is just a journey, and yes, excuse me, failure or not getting the results you want, yeah, it's hard at times, and it can be disappointing at times. But once you get past that, and then you start saying, okay, and that's what I like what you said, the post-mortem. Let's go back and look at it once the feelings are over of, you know, I listened to somebody who, a coach for we're filming right around March Madness, and the Creighton team lost, you know, with a call at the end, and they were disappointed. And he says, yeah, this hurts. He goes, yeah, feel it. He goes, but understand, we wouldn't have been to this point without all the work we did. And now we're going to learn moving forward. And the pride that, you know, you brought to everyone who ever wore this jersey or went to like, when you start putting it in that bigger perspective, that small moment, yeah, it stinks, but it's small in your journey. And so again, go back 5 years. And when you look back 5 years and look at yourself now, if you did it honestly, for all of you listening, do this exercise. Think of where you were 5 years ago, where you are now, just as a person, not wealth, not job, but it could be job title, responsibility, all of this, just in your own skin. I'll guarantee you're all going to go, wow, look at everything I did. Look at what the changes are. And now you say, yeah, at that moment, I'll guarantee you can't even remember all those moments of, except, you know, one or two. You don't remember the day-to-day frustrations. So learn from them, let them go, get back on track, keep moving forward. My wife always says that, keep moving forward. And that's what your job is. And as a leader of those teams, or when you're coming into a thing, because when you're coming into a company, especially like you, they're probably looking like, oh man, we got the meta rock star here. And they're probably sussing you out. Is he an asshole? Is he a nice guy? What is it? You know, what's going on? And at the end of the day, after 30 days, they're like, all right, we're all over heads down. We're all going towards our goal. And that's really important as a leader, to make sure you're constantly reminding your team about that.
As cliche as this is going to sound, I would not be where I am today if I A, didn't fail often, and B, didn't take risks. Like you just are not going to get over any hump that you have to get over if you're not willing to take the risk, or if you're too scared to actually, you know, do what you need to do. Yep. So
that's super important, super important. And my son's coach, and I was told this early on by someone, is like, when things start getting tough and frustrating, that's when you're ready to go through to a new level. You're hitting the wall. Because if it wasn't hard, then you're okay. You're doing something that is just okay. But when it's starting to get hard, starting to get worried, starting to get tough, you're approaching that wall that's going to push you through. But there's going to be a time where you're going to look back and go, oh, that wall's nothing. But at that time, the wall was something.
I'll
If that
close
makes
with
sense.
this, Glenn. I had a coach. Of course, some of us will always take what coaches taught us or teachers taught us or, whoever, counselors. And we had a motto one year and it was embrace the grind, right?
Mhm.
Say, embrace it. He's like, you're going to miss this. It hurts. You're tired. It's hot. It's exhausting. You're in pain, but you are going to miss this. And you don't realize until time and life hits you. You're like, I'd do anything to go back to that moment or that moment in time. So,
But
uh,
every job and every role has the grind, and I think
every
that's a great motto to bring with you everywhere, because if you understand what Bob just said, the grind of a job, the grind of doing a podcast, the grind of having meetings, the grind of traveling. Everyone's like, "Oh, traveling's so great." There's the grind of the traveling, but if you embrace it, don't let it get you down, and know that this is part of why you're successful, is that grind. I think it allows you to succeed. So I could sit here and chat with you so long, all the time. So I got at the end of our episode, we always ask for 3 questions, 1 word answer, short, whatever. So number 1, we've been talking about growth. We've been talking about leadership, a lot of different things. What's one book that impacted you that you would recommend to the audience that would be beneficial?
You're going to hate this answer. And I've asked, I'm not a book reader.
Okay, forget book.
I'm not going to lie.
Reading,
Like,
that's okay. I think the last time you were on my show, I asked you the same thing, and that's shame on me for not
I'm
remembering.
not a book
Okay.
reader.
Who do you follow, listen to? Like you said, a coach, who podcast speaker, who makes you go, yeah, I like listening to them.
So at the moment, I mean, a lot of people say Nick Saban, he does have a lot of one-liners, but at the moment, I've been getting a lot of Gino. I don't know how to pronounce his last name correctly. The Yukon women's coach,
Gino Oriamo.
Aria. He has got, and I'll send him to my kids. His latest one that has come into my feed was, do you want to know the difference between good players and great players? And of course, he's talking to his team. He goes, great players don't get tired.
Yeah.
And he's like, they're on par. They're the same talent. They're the same. Great players don't get tired. And you just sit there and you're like, okay, and the meaning in life, like the meaning in our world is,
yep.
And he's just got so many great, that's who I've been getting, obviously, because I've probably clicked and listened and dwelled on his stuff. So I'm getting more of it, but
that's okay. We like that.
Coaches quotes when they're good affect me more than reading a chapter in a book. And I don't know why.
No, I agree. I saw another one of his where he was talking to one of his players and he says, don't worry about the points. Don't worry about the points. Don't go out there. He goes, it's how you're playing the game every single minute. When you're done, you'll know how you played. He goes, you make shots that you shouldn't, you miss shots that you should, he goes, that's basketball, but it's how you're playing the game every day. And I think that's another way to approach it. Are you approaching your job, your role, your responsibilities every day with that commitment to maximize what you can bring to that moment? I think that's another way to do it. So great. Number 2, talking about change and things that we're all working on. What's something you personally are working on for yourself that a year from now you're hoping to go, yeah, I'm in a better place?
Personally or professionally? Yeah.
Personally.
So again, cliche, but I have gained weight. Like I have gained probably 15 or so pounds. And I took it upon myself not too long ago. So now every morning, my dog and I, we do this almost 3-mile loop. I live on a public golf course. It's closed right now. And I'll be honest with you, like I feel 1,000 times better. The weight will come. Like it's not like I'm going to lose this weight instantly, but I've taken the challenge person. Now, I will say there is another one. So my son is going to college. I know you've experienced this or about to experience it. I have a senior. He's my oldest. And I'm just being more conscious on shooting him a Snapchat, shooting him a text, because he's not going to be here, man. Like
is he going in the fall?
Goes in the fall, man.
Where's he going?
Choking up now, but like
where's he going?
He does. He's this week. He finds out the school that I think he wants to go to, but he's already been accepted to some other schools.
Yeah, that's my son's. He's been accepted. He was accepted to 5 out of 6. And so we're in the process this weekend. Actually, we're going back to one of
Love
the
that.
schools he's been. So we've been to all of the schools. I took him on business trips, and then we've been back to all of the schools he's been accepted to, so he could see them again and really get into that idea of the best advice we got about this whole college thing was all of the colleges, and I'm sure for your son as well, all the colleges that he applied to and or get accepted to at the end of the day are probably fairly similar, unless it's like one or. And so someone told us the key is really getting your child to say to themselves, where do I want to live for the next 4 years?
What feels more like home?
Well, just where I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And that to me clicked, because at the end of the day, the educations, they're all good colleges. It's not like, so yes, I'm doing the same thing. I'm sitting here in the back of my head going, I hope I did enough. Did I make him prepared? And then, inside the other one of, no, I'm okay that he's leaving. Right. Yeah. I got that too. All right. Last one. Out of all the things we talked about, and we talked about a lot, and again, thank you so much for taking time to do this. This is really great. What's the one thing that you hope the listener gets out of this conversation today? What's one thing?
Just it goes back to embrace the grind. Like, it's going to be hard. It's difficult. It's challenging, but like, if you can't embrace it, don't do it. Like, do something else, right? Go, I mean, something for you to do. So I guess, in the moment in my younger days, like, I'm not gonna lie, I'd lose sleep, I'd stress, right? I worry a lot. I've been able to switch that mindset, which is, okay, this call's not going to be fun. Like, we've got a massive challenge, but how much fun is it going to be when we figure it out, right, and we fix it, or whatever the scenario is, and we can have a virtual drink. We get to see the team in person, whatever it is. And I said this to the team the other day. I was like, guys, this project we're on, like, challenging, like, really important for the company, but hard, like, really hard. But it's going to make it that much more sweeter the next time we're together and we've fixed it and we've solved it and we fling a drink of choice, whatever that is. And it's going to feel that much more impactful and fun. So
I love that.
Embrace the grind.
Embrace the grind. I like that. That's going to be a good one. All right. So listen, Bob, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time. This is fantastic. Where can everyone connect with you? Because it's important. This is a gentleman that I think, audience, you should be connecting with. Where can people find you?
LinkedIn. And listen, like, shoot me a message. I always try to get back. I always spend time every day to get back to you, whether it's a career advice or just you have a thought or whatever it is, like anything. Just I always tell, I ran an organization at our school called Watchdogs, Dads of Great Students. And the whole concept was to bring a dad to volunteer into the school, because moms always do that. Moms are always in the school. And the idea was like, how can we have a dad once a week, and it ended up being every day, just volunteer in the school's elementary school. And I would present why it was important. I just said, guys, we're all in this thing called life together. Like, let's figure it out together. Like, I'm going to have to rely on you sometime. I might call you up and ask for some mentorship. You might call me up and ask for mentorship. So we're in this thing called life together. Let's just figure it out together.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So, audience, you know the drill. First off, I appreciate that you took time today to listen to Bob and I know there's a lot of places that you can listen to content, but the fact that you spent time with Bob and myself today means the world. If you found value, please share this out. I'm sure there's someone in your network could benefit from what Bob shared today. If you liked what you saw and liked what you listened to, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, the YouTube channel. Like I said, share it out. That would mean the world to me. We're here every single week. The goal is to have conversations with people like Bob to help you become better at what you're trying to accomplish, build those skills necessary to achieve that success, both personally and professionally. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you next time. And like I say at the end of every episode, you're in charge. But now Bob gave you a few more tools and tips to put in your toolkit so that you can become more successful. Thanks so much for listening. And don't forget, keep moving forward. Bob, can't wait to see you. Talk to you soon.
Embrace the grind.